Figures add so much to your paintings. They give your paintings a sense of life, a sense of scale, a sense of movement. When it comes to painting figures though, we often feel a little intimidated. We put so much importance on painting people exactly how they need to be. Today I'm going to give you some pointers and really simplify this process of adding figures into your paintings. First of all, I think it's important to remember that figures are shapes. We add a lot of importance to figures, and there are things about them that we do need to paint correctly, but we don't want to add too much importance. We want to see them just as shapes, as any other shape in the scene. Generally, the heads are about at the same height. Of course, you're going to have a little bit of variation in height. She is shorter, he is taller, but generally those heads are going to land around the same line. Now, if a figure is closer up to you, leave their head on the same plane and extend their legs and torso further down into the scene. Here is a look at my drawing. So again, I try to keep all the heads relatively on the same plane, and having a good drawing is important because you do want to make sure that your proportions are correct and things are looking okay before you commit to painting them. So let me show you how I handle the first wash of this painting. So I wet down the front and the back of my paper, as I typically do. What I'm doing here is laying in some skin tone on these figures. I am using raw sienna and burnt sienna, 50-50% mixture of both of those. Now I'm adding in the light values of their clothing. So the area of her shirt that is in light and his shirt that is in light, that's what I'm thinking about now also. And I'm letting those colors just merge together softly on the paper. Then I'm going in and I'm adding in the other light values around the figures. So a nice wet and wet wash over the whole paper. I did leave a little bit of white on the bag that he's carrying. Right here you can see how bright that is in contrast to the shadow. So I left a little bit of light area to keep that in mind for the future. Okay, and so this is what it looks like after my first wash is done and after I let the paper dry. So now I'm moving into the middle values of my painting. And I'm starting with the stone over here, using a variety of warm colors and cools for the shadows, the little bit of shadow side, and I'm moving right into the green of the trees. I'm connecting the shadow of the pillar into the shadow on the side of the stone here. And you can see right here, I got up to the edge of his arm and I want to stop. There's light on the edge of his arm and I'm already thinking about that light that I want to preserve. And I'm mixing in some warm color on the side of that stone and some cooler color for the shadows that are sky facing. Typically shadows that are facing the sky will have a little bit of coolness in them. So I'm painting that shadow right up until I get to this figure. Now I've switched to a smaller brush because I want to incorporate the middle values on this figure into the middle values of the wash of the shadow. And I need a smaller brush to have a little bit more control here. So you can see her pants are darker than the shadow. I'm painting right through that. So anything that is darker that you're going to paint over again, you can go right through. I move over to this side, I connect that shadow into the shadow over here. And again, you can see I have some warm for that shadow and some cool for the sky facing shadows again. Okay, and right here is shorts that are khaki colored. I'm taking a little bit darker version of what I use to create the lights in that scene. And I love this part of painting because you're starting to get that light to appear in front of you. You've laid in the light values in your first wash, and in this wash, you're using a darker version of the same color, and you're really starting to get that light and shadow effect, which is so important. I'm blending right into this shadow shape and letting those colors merge. And you can see here I moved up into a shirt and I'm starting to add a little bit darker version of that same color. And one thing I did here is that you can see all of this is hard edged. I took a damp brush and I softened this edge. I like to have a mixture of hard edges and soft edges. So in order to do that, I just took a damp, clean brush and I just lifted part of that edge off right here and create a little bit of a soft edge. And right here you have some cool things happening. The value of this is blending into the value or the wash back here, really making that figure feel incorporated into the scene and not completely cut out. Okay, so I went ahead and added a darker version of that green that's on her shirt. Again, we're building up that strength as we go. And these figures are more minor characters in this painting, so I just got some gray and connected them into that shadow shape. And I'm moving on into the face of the stone here of this aqueduct, moving around into the background, connecting that into the trees. And you can see how that first wash was really a setup for what is coming now. So there's little bits of the tree that we're leaving behind, where there are lighter values, where the light is catching the trees. Every wash is a setup for the next wash, and it's very important to remember that as you work your way through the painting. Okay, and I'm dropping in some darks into these trees while this wash is still wet. Some of those shadows are just fading, kind of soft edges into the trees there. And I brought that shadow down and used it to define the edge of the wall over here. I'm adding a little bit of texture into the stone. I'm kind of skimming through that because it's not really the main point of this video. Back to the figures. Now we have lights, we have middle values on the figures. We need some darks to really bring those figures forward and to add a feeling of finish to them. Okay, so I'm putting in some raw umber, some neutral tint to create that dark brown color for his hair. A little bit of skin tone, I'm using some more of the same, some raw sienna, some burnt sienna. And now this is when the light really becomes apparent. I'm taking some neutral tint, raw sienna, and I'm making a dark mixture to really get that strength on his shirt. Okay, and when you get those darks on there, that's when the lights really start to show. You can see right here what I do is I take a damp brush and I soften this once again, just like I did in the last wash. And I think that is so nice, that soft edge versus those harder, crisp edges. It gives the figure a feeling of form as well. When you are getting the light values, the middle values, and the darks onto a figure, it really starts to come to life. The light is apparent. You can see I'm adding some darks onto this figure now. I needed a little more skin tone to define her arm. And then I added a little more value on these secondary figures that were next to them and the lady that's in front of them. Let's talk about creating the shadow. So the shadow is very important to ground them into your scene. So here I painted a little bit of his shoes and I go right into that shadow shape. I want those to be connected as one piece. So I'm pulling that shadow over and it's going to connect into her shadow as well. And that shadow comes up onto the side of the wall, which is a nice way to show the form of this wall since it's mostly in light. I needed to give his hair just a little more strength. I hope that you can see that really thinking through the figures from their light value, their medium value to their darks can give you a lovely figure with feeling of motion that feels believable. Keep working at it and you will get better and better at this over time. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? You ever had that experience? You just are having a hard time finding consistency. Some of your paintings turn out, some of your paintings don't turn out, and you're not really sure why. Well, I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone, you could print it out, and you can take a look at these crucial planning steps before you start each painting to ensure that you're thinking through these important things as you get started. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.